Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Barker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everybody. We're at the halfway point in the latest championship here on the VRRC. The VRRC Touring Car European Tour heads to Spain this week, and the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, or just outside Barcelona to be precise, a favourite, sort of, anyway, on the Formula One calendar over the decades. Certainly a challenging circuit, and one that actually I think is quite well suited to touring car racing. Should be another exciting night of action with two 20-minute races to come your way over the course of the evening. Andy McEwan here in the commentary box, joined by Jack Oliphant once again with Lewis Edwards on the broadcast. And Jack, Barcelona, one of those circuits that it very much depends who you're talking to. But if you're talking to a Formula One fan, then this place appearing on a calendar is not normally met with a huge amount of enthusiasm. However, any other form of racing that comes and takes part in some racing at Circuit de Catalunya usually provides quite a bit of excitement. I'm hoping we're going to see more of that tonight.
Yeah, I always quite like the idea of Catalunya, to be honest. I've actually been to Catalunya to watch the Formula One, and yeah, it was a bit boring, but the Porsches on beforehand, which I might have a little bit of a bias towards, given that Tom was racing, but they were very entertaining. Having watched it from the Williams garage, it was quite fun. But it is a great circuit as well, like you said, for basically everything else other than Formula One. And I had to do a double take when you mentioned that we were halfway through the season, because it seems to have gone by like a snap. We've got Red Bull Ring, Zandvoort, Donington and Hockenheim as well to come in the next 4 weeks. So I think the best is yet to come from this particular championship. We've also got different championship protagonists as well coming into the fore, with the likes of Jack Smith's BMW getting slightly more closer to everybody else's cars, let's say. Not quite going to run away with it quite as easily by the looks of the timing screen. But yeah, it's looking like a really, really good evening's racing.
It certainly is, absolutely. And we've had some fantastic racing across the first 3 rounds of this championship, including a week ago at Mugello, which provided 2 very interesting races and a brand new winner in the VRRC. Fabrizio Torri winning at home in a way. The team Abbey Racing Hyundai was victorious from pole position in the first race of the night. Struggled in race 2, got caught up in some early drama that actually involved Oliver Gibson as well, amongst other championship front runners. And all of that meant that it was actually Nicky Taylor who came out with the highest score of the night. Despite still not having a race victory this season, he did have a 4 and a second place finish to net 40 championship points, and that does him very well in the championship indeed. Torri was still the second highest point scorer, and Jack Smith dominant across the first 2 weeks of racing. He won 3 of the first 4 races. He's had 5 podium finishes from the first 6 races this season, but a, by his standards, disastrous 7th place finish in race 2 last week meant that he was only the 3rd highest point scorer, with Fabrizio Torri also taking the Driver of the Round award at the end of that latest week of racing. And all of that, has sort of shaken up the championship standings, but because we've now completed 3 of the 8 weeks of racing, the 2 dropped scores start to get applied. And so essentially we start looking at everyone's individual best scoring week. That is what the current championship table shows. Obviously, after tonight, we now start adding to that, and it should all start to make a bit more sense. But whichever way you look at it, Jack, it's looking good for Jack Smith. I think that 7th place finish from race 2 a week ago is already but a distant memory.
Yeah, and I think he's got a nice sort of backup couple of rounds as well, hasn't he, with those 54 points, and he's performed very well in the other 2 that have been technically dropped in quotation marks. Nicky Taylor, yeah, he's going to have a pretty much perfect championship to catch up to the BMW driver, but it's very, very close for second place. Taylor has got Torri just behind. He's got Joel Lask, Elliot Dalton Ayres, Oliver Gibson, Kyle Felvers. all within 8 points. So that top sort of second down to 7th is looking very interesting indeed. And then the fight to stay in the top 10 looks like it's going to be nice and close. Andy Carroll, Josh Martin, Jordan Taylor in amongst the drivers there. And you've got to wonder what they're all driving for ultimately, because of course we are here with the VRRC, and that means we have prizes on offer, big prizes as that. The Cammus Simulation direct drive wheel is first place along with a nice shiny trophy. The Aegon 34-inch gaming display is second place with a, again, slightly smaller but equally shiny trophy. And third place is the GT Rigs Sim seat, which is accompanied by, you guessed it, a slightly smaller yet equally shiny trophy. We also have 4th and 5th place. It's a variety of apparel from VRRC's latest sort of partnership with Delta Racewear, and you can get them personalized as well. So let's say if Nicky Taylor ended up coming in 4th place, and picking a name at random there, he could get Taylor with his race number on the back of either his top or his jumper. It's fantastic. We also have the driver of the round, the NGK jacket with a nice little medal, and the fan of the round. And there's 2 versions of the fan of the round. You can have it for being the most entertaining in the YouTube chat and being a subscriber, and we'll give that out each and every week. Or each and every week there will be just a random draw from the subscriber pool that is, basically drawn at random. And you also get an NGK bobble hat. So that is all the prizes that are on offer. There's quite a few, but remember, to keep it entertaining in the YouTube chat, we may well be picking you.
You are much better at that than me, Jack. I think that's going to become your new regular bit for the week. Music to your ears, I'm sure. But yes, music to the ears of the drivers, definitely well worth going for those top spots in the championship. It's going to take quite an effort to knock Jack Smith off that top spot, I think. But looking at the practice time so far tonight, maybe he's not going to have it all his own way here at Barcelona. Well, let's take a look, shall we, at the Barcelona circuit. It's a really fun track, one that I'm sure our circuit guide, Lewis Edwards, is going to enjoy talking us around.
Hello and welcome to Barcelona. I'm Lewis Edwards and I'm going to be taking you around the track guide for this, the 4th round of the Cammus Simulation Touring Car Championship, heading towards the halfway point of the season already. We're currently heading towards turn 1 though, looking to brake just before the 100-metre board on the left-hand side just here, down into 3rd gear, avoiding the apex curbs of 1 and 2, but still battling a fair bit of oversteer. Turn 3 is completely flat out. You want to get as close to this apex curb on the inside as possible without touching it, and then using up all of the road on the exit without going too far wide over track limits. We want to use all of this road on the entry for 4, as that can open up the corner. Might have to wind the brake bias forwards, as the rear does like to get a bit light on you there on entry. Powering through 4 now, going back over to the right hand side for the downhill turn 5. All about setting up a nice exit through here and not using too much of this exit curb, as I find that really unsettles the car. Heading towards the chicane of 7 and 8 now. We're going to go braking as the curb starts on the right hand side down to 4th gear, again missing those apex curbs but using up all of the exit to straight line that exit nicely. Turn 9 is a little dab on the brakes and then straight back to the power. Be careful on the track limits on the exit. You've got to keep 2 wheels on the racing surface. So we drift now back over to the right hand side for turn 10. You want to brake at about 65 meters down into 3rd gear, taking an earlier apex and just being careful getting back to the power, keeping good momentum through here. 12 is really sketchy on entry, so just have to be a bit careful and make sure the car is nice and stable through here. And we're now powering out of the corner and into 13, which is completely flat out as long as you're on a good line. And then we're approaching the final corner, dab of brakes back to the power as soon as possible, and then fire it out onto the exit, staying within the track limits, and that completes a lap of Barcelona.
So there was your bird's eye view of what is a very high-speed circuit. Perfect, really, for the touring car machinery that we're using for this season. That hybrid button is going to get a real workout when we get into the races later on. But for now, we're in qualifying. No hybrids allowed. It's all about trying to set the fastest lap time that you can, qualify as well as you can for that first of 2 races a little bit later on this season. This weekend, this tonight. There we go. Get the right word out. I'm on top form tonight, aren't I? I can tell already. Qualifying always important though, Jack, and it has been so far this season because of the first 3 rounds that we've had, the driver who's qualified on pole position for race 1 has won race 1 on each occasion. It was Jack Smith the first 2 weeks. It was Fabrizio Torri a week ago. And so the drivers, I'm sure, will be extra motivated tonight to try and set the fastest time in this session.
Yeah, I think Jack Smith made it look easy, didn't he, in his first 2 weeks? But when Fabrizio Torri's turn came around, I don't believe he got off the grid extremely quickly. I think he got bogged down in a couple of corners, so he had to work a little bit harder for his win. So it wasn't quite lights a flag, but he did ultimately have the best pace, didn't he? And we were keeping an eye out on the times in practice. And my goodness, they were close. I mean, for instance, Lewis Edwards, he spotted that in second place was Elliot Daltonaire, Jack Smith was third, and Kyle Felvers was fourth. They were separated by 1,000th of a second. And that means Elliot Daltonaire and Jack Smith were exactly the same time, and Kyle Felvers was only 0.001 behind, which is quite incredible, really. And we sort of saw over the top 12 was very close indeed as well. In fact, the top 9 were all separated by 0.4 of a second. And around a 2-minute lap, Andy, that is quite significant.
It is, absolutely. And like you said, a 2-minute lap, to have close lap times like that is particularly impressive. We'll see whether that translates across into this qualifying session, because again, the fact that it's such a long lap means that you're going to get a huge amount of flying laps in a 15-minute session. So if you make a couple of mistakes, you could find yourself not really posting a representative lap time, and that's going to obviously have a knock-on effect to your performance. But Elliot Daltonaire is picking up exactly where he left off in that practice session. He's one of the pace setters. In fact, he is the pace setter in the early stages. First lap time's coming in, and it's Daltonaire's quickest from Oliver Gibson at the moment, second, Joel Lask third, Nicky Taylor fourth, and Andy Dorman in 5th position. But I feel that we have not yet seen the best of some of the drivers further back. Big stream of them here making their way down into turn number 10. This is that reprofiled hairpin that, well, this version of it has always been there, or certainly has been for a long time, but hasn't been used for a while before being incorporated into, well, these days, most championships that visit Barcelona. And then, of course, these final 2 corners, which, as we'll see here from on board with Jack Smith, are full commitment. Bit of a lift maybe through that first right-hander, and then down into the final corner, get the car settled. He didn't really get the front settled there, and that is the kind of turn, Jack, where the rear-wheel drive BMW might be at a little bit of a disadvantage. Going downhill into a high-speed corner, because it doesn't have as much weight over that front axle, can be difficult to get the front end of the car to stick, and that seemed to be the issue there that Jack Smith was fighting.
And it's a very important corner as well, arguably one of the most important on the circuit, isn't it, Andy? Because, of course, it's got the longest straight. You are flat out for the most amount of time after it. So you really do want to be getting on the power nice and early, which does mean setting the car up so you can get on the power just after the apex, preferably. But obviously Jack Smith couldn't quite manage it there, and if Jack Smith can't quite manage it, then my prayers are with the likes of the other BMW drivers, because he just seems to be able to get the knack of it quite quickly. Oliver Gibson, though, is one of the other BMW drivers, and he currently holds pole position. So what do I know? He's clearly got a bit between his teeth, does Oliver, because he was very quick, but he was second in the first 2 weekends, first 2 evenings in this championship, wasn't he? Oliver Gibson had to play second fiddle in qualifying quite a few times, and that meant he got swallowed up by the pack a little bit. He's going to be hoping so he can just eke out that extra 1/10 of a second, beat out his brother Jack Smith, and maybe then get onto the front row and drive away, and it'll be his turn to drive into the distance.
Yeah, his problem really has been the reverse grid races. He's not finished out of the top 5 yet in any of the race 1s of the night, but at both Brno and Mugello, he had to deal with a 13th place finish in the reverse grid race. Of course, that was on both occasions having got caught up in incidents, had that spin at Mugello a week ago, and unfortunately was only able to recover once again to a 13th place finish. He's been quick though, not quite as quick maybe as Jack Smith, but as the championship success ballast now starts to ebb and flow a bit, that might just favour Oliver. Bounces over the curb there through the penultimate turn. Again, there you can see the front of the BMW not really sticking through the final corner. One of the Cupras is in the gravel just ahead of him, and he has to duck out to the right-hand side to avoid them. Comes across the timing line. Is it going to be an improvement this for Oliver Gibson? Don't think it was it? So Gibson stays where he was. Daltonaire's second, Jack Smith up to third. So both of the DK BMWs are at the moment inside the top 3. Carl Felvis and Andy Carroll completing the top 5 runners at the moment. But yeah, Oliver Gibson looking strong out there right now. And it's about time, really. I think that he netted himself a race win. Oliver Gibson's been knocking on the door of race victories for a little while now. I think I'm right in saying didn't get a victory last season in the touring cars. He had a pole position early on in the season, but didn't get a race victory. And I think it's fair to say, Jack, he's had the pace to win, perhaps just not the look.
Yeah, I think I sort of mentioned it in the first week, I believe. It was potentially a little bit of racecraft in there that he needs to slightly work on. Because like I said, he has qualified on the front row. And really, I know first, and obviously you prefer to be in first. You get the optimal line going into turn 1. But they've both got the rear-wheel drives. They should both get a decent start. It should be a straight battle between himself and the likes of Jack Smith, who ended up winning those first 2 rounds. But it just seems he's maybe just getting caught out. Maybe he's getting bullied a little bit. He's sort of unlike say Jack Smith, who just doesn't seem to ever have a problem. He seems to be nice and easy going from the start of the race and through to the end, whereas Oliver does seem to get swallowed up a little bit. So maybe there's just a little bit of a mistakes on the cold tyres, potentially, that he's not quite as used to as his brother. But we'll see if he can get it and sort of solidify his first place in this qualifier, because there is only 5.5 minutes left. And as we see Joel Lask, he's not going to be setting a quicker time on this particular lap because he's been off on the second sector. So a few drivers coming in with green sectors. Nicky Taylor in sector 2 has gone a little bit quicker. Jack Smith has also gone in green sector 1, but he's in the pits. So quite a handful of drivers are actually in the pits, as Carl Felvis has jumped himself up to 4th place.
Yes, he has indeed, and Nicky Taylor to 5th as well, not long after. So that demotes Joel Lask down to 7th position. Bit of a shame after Joel did look like he was showing a bit more pace in qualifying this week than he has the last few weeks. Now, speaking of pace, well, I can't really comment on Josh Martin's pace because he hasn't yet set a lap time. He is the only driver not to have set a lap time in the session. And as he turns his way through turn 9 and down towards the braking zone at turn 10, we need to hope that he's on a decent lap now, because he is fast running out of time. Just 4.5 minutes or so to go. And the green and white BMW winds its way through 10 up towards turn 11. And Josh Martin, once again, making life difficult for himself, seemingly fighting the wheel as well. They're really sliding the car around. He doesn't look all that comfortable behind the wheel, does he? Let's hope that he's managed to keep it within track limits this time, and he can actually set a lap time, but it really didn't look like that car was handling as he'd like it.
No, I think he's trying too hard with the Mary Poppins cosplay, isn't he? Because he's got that umbrella just behind him, blocking out the sun. I spent the last, while you were talking there, Andy, I spent the last 45 seconds trying to think of a Mary Poppins pun, but it's yet to come to me. That's my mission for the rest of the night. But I think Josh Martin's mission for the rest of this lap, anyway, should be to keep it clean and just put a time in, because it really hasn't worked out well for him. He was on 2 green sectors, but then he went off the track in sector 3, so it was disqualified yet again. And it's really not been a season for qualifying for Josh. It's a bit of a shame for him, much to the joys of quite a few people in the YouTube chat. But I think he personally would probably quite like to jump up the championship order rather than seeing his friends win the fan of the round week in, week out. Nathan Smith has just gone green sector 1 and 2, so a bit of an improvement for him. He's up to 11th place, not quite in the top 10. Last week's winner, Fabrizio Torri, is in 9th place in the Hyundai, so I don't know if there's an increase in success balance. He's got 30 kilograms aboard. I can't quite remember what he was on last week, to be fair, but maybe that is hampering him just a bit, given that he's 3rd in the championship and he's just jumped up to 8th.
Indeed so. Josh Martin then continues to push hard, continues to not set a lap time at the moment. Yeah, Josh Martin in a little bit of trouble here, maybe, although we thought this at Mugello and then obviously bounced back very nicely in the second race of the night, did Josh. 16th in race 1, but won race 2. And again, he's not had a terrible season. Had a 4th place at Magny-Cours, a 3rd in the first race at Brno. But Josh Martin struggling seemingly with track limits in this particular qualifying session. Winds his way down the hill then through the final couple of corners. And, well, he does seem to get the nose of the car turned into the final turns. Let's see whether this one is going to register. Then across the line, he will go very shortly. And yes, finally gets a lap time in. And it is 10th place. So not a brilliant effort that from Josh Martin, but at least he's got a time on the board.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a breath of relief, I suppose, and 10th place as well, just cracking into that. But he's not far away from other drivers. Craig Curtis is only about a couple of tenths away from him, and Nathan Smith is behind. Jordan Taylor is a driver that we're yet to see a real strong showing from him yet this session. But we are focusing a little bit further forward now in the fight for the top 5. Nicky Taylor currently in that 5th position, but he's got 2 green sectors, Andy, and he's looking very determined with those hunched shoulders and that very sort of Nicky Taylor driving style. Look at the concentration. I don't think he's blinked once, although that could be the pixelation.
No, I think you're right. That is the concentration, I reckon, and it pays off. 3rd place for Nicky, and immediately relaxes. That's the best that he can do, he feels. I do enjoy watching Nicky Taylor, though. He's always up on the wheel, always looks like he's really aggressive when he's behind the wheel, which should pay him dividends in a touring car series, really. But then you compare that to Jack Smith, who just looks so relaxed, so smooth. I really do enjoy these onboard cameras that we've got now for here at the VRRC, so that we can really sort of take a look at the different driving styles. That's something I think that people don't realize still applies in sim racing, but drivers do have different driving styles. Even though these aren't real cars that they're driving, you're still turning a wheel and pushing pedals, and those physical actions that you put in do differ from driver to driver, and it's fascinating to watch.
It is, yeah. We obviously try and make it as realistic as possible, and the leaps and bounds. Oh my days! Just as we were saying how realistic it is, Jack Smith won't be agreeing with that one because, of course, it's never the driver's fault. But he ends up spinning around and doing his best Kylie impression, and actually that's a pretty smart way of turning it back around. I thought he was going to smack the front end into that Rolex again, but he just about gets it facing the right way. He's stuck in 4th position. You can tell he's trying to push, though. We haven't seen that before from Jack Smith.
No, don't adjust your sets, everyone. That really was Jack Smith making a mistake all by himself. And yeah, only 4th quickest in this session right now. He is only a 10th and a half off pole, though. It is ridiculously tight out there. But yeah, Jack, I think proving there that the BOP adjustments, the ballast that he's carrying, it's all adding up to make life a bit more difficult for the championship leader. Gives other drivers maybe half a chance at beating him in the championship race. This is one of those drivers who'll be hoping to do exactly that, Elliot Dalton Ayres. But right now, he's looking to try and beat Jack Smith's teammate to the pole position. Oliver Gibson is ahead by a 1/10 of a second right now, but Elliot Dalton Ayres misses the apex by a mile at the final turn, and that almost certainly now means that this won't be an improvement to the line. He will come and, yeah, sees the checkered flag without improving his time. Let's see whether or not anyone else can make any last-minute changes to the running order. Oliver Gibson's actually just done a personal best in the 1st sector on his latest lap. He's already got the pole position, and looking at the sector times, Jack, I don't see anyone else who looks like beating him.
No, I think Oliver Gibson's going to cross the line. A very happy man. Elliot Dalton Ayres crosses. He's not going to improve. Nicky Taylor is slow in sector 1. So I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, in terms of the realistic drivers that we're seeing to jump up to the front row. Joel Lask not really going very quickly at all. In fact, that is Josh Martin. Is that Josh Martin that we're currently focused on? Yeah, no, that's that BMW is not looking the right way, is it? So that's not going to be performing particularly well in qualifying, I'd say.
No, where did he end up in the end? He was 11th by the flag. Someone else improved. I think maybe Craig Curtis into 10th place in the Astra. Well, that is qualifying done. We'll be speaking to Oliver Gibson, our pole sitter, in just a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the VRRC, the qualifying session complete here at Barcelona, and we've got our pole sitter for the first race of the evening with us now, a third different pole sitter of the season so far, and it's Oliver Gibson who set the fastest time by about a tenth of a second. And Oliver, given how close the times have been through practice and through that qualifying session, having a tenth in hand doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a handy advantage. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. To be honest, I thought I could do that time. It was just a matter of executing that time and doing what I did in practice, because this evening I've managed to find some pace. Don't know where it's come from, but maybe because Jack's my teammate and he's given his powers to me or something, I don't know, but it's a great advantage, and hopefully that tenth of a second we can do in the race, and lap by lap we can try and build a gap and keep that win.
It's going to be easier said than done, though. I do think this is going to be a circuit, maybe a bit like Brno, where it's difficult to break away at the front, lots of places where you can use the hybrid. It's going to be quite a tactical race, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with this push to pass, it's going to be, every race is quite tactical now, but this one especially, with the straights, with the kind of corners you have to get a run into and all things like that. So, and the hairpins, of course, plenty of dive bombs probably into there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to try and stay out of trouble, just get my head down, laps in, save the push to pass, and hopefully that'll be enough to try and finally get a win.
Now, as we've just been discussing off air, it's been a while since you last had a win. For those watching at home, it was Suzuka at the back end of the GTV3 Championship, I believe. But you've been so close on a number of occasions, so that hunger to get a race victory must really be there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last series, I had a couple poles, race twos I could have won. Maybe even this series, a couple of race twos I could have won. But yeah, I mean, it's just I wouldn't say it's luck, but it's a mix of luck and just me a bit panicky on the loud pedal. So try and keep it cool. I've had plenty of tries at this and plenty of practice for a win now. So hopefully today is the day I can finally get a second win.
We are all wishing you the very best, Oliver. We'll let you go and make your final preparations. Congrats on the pole position, though, and the very best of luck for the race.
Thank you.
So Oliver Gibson, pole position then for the first of the two races, which is coming your way in just under 4 minutes or so, if I had to hazard a guess, which gives us a bit of time in the meantime, Jack, to talk about a few things going on at the VRRC.
Indeed, there is. Yeah, there's plenty of extra opportunities to race on a simulator with the VRRC, which is what we always like to do, as many as we can. There we go, fun race with the Sunday the 10th. I was just making sure that was the right date, because sometimes they have thrown me off a little bit. So 8 o'clock. You don't need to be a member to jump into any kind of fun race. You can just jump in and see what you like against the likes of the championship contenders and see how you fare. If you're thinking about getting involved with the actual championships, then this is a great way of introducing yourself to the grid and into the community as well. It's a very friendly community. So if you want to join in on this or any of the further sort of graphics coming up, then by all means have a look down below in the description and click on the link. But not only do we have fun races on a Sunday at 8 p.m, we do have the time attacks as well, and we're going around Monaco. Well, at least it's in a Renault Clio, which is probably quicker than the Renault car at the moment. So yeah, circuit of Monaco. There are cash prizes for this as well. This one's for 2 weeks. It's only just started a couple of days ago, so you have 2 weeks to get on the server, set a time at any point during those 2 weeks, and set as many times as you want as well to try and climb up the ladder. Now, you can join in if you aren't a member, but if you want to win the cash prize of £15, £10, £7, £5, or £3, then you do have to be a member to be given a chance with the actual prizes. And so that's the fun race and the time attack. And I'm not sure if there's anything else. I'm waiting for Lewis to throw something in my face. There we go. Le Mans, the multi-class LMP2 and GTE. Now, I believe, I'm just getting confirmation in my ear, Lewis, that this is a one-off event in between the two championships. There we go. First place gets an NGK remote control car. Second place gets a bit of personalized gear. And the third place will get a VRRC hat as a part of the race Delta racewear sort of setup that we've got going on. So if you want to jump in for the LMP2 or GTE, I'm sure it's going to be rather fun. A 90-minute race as well, Andy. That's something right up your street.
Do you know, it absolutely is. Love a bit of endurance racing. I honestly thought for a split second there that you won a real Ferrari. I hadn't spotted the remote control in the background. That makes a lot more sense. The budget here at the VRRC is not bad, but I didn't think we were quite stretching to those sort of prizes. But yeah, really looking forward to that. Actually, I love multi-class racing. It's something we've not really tried at the VRRC before, at least on our broadcast championships or one-off races, and so that's going to be an awful lot of fun. And well, there is no better place, is there really, for a bit of multi-class sports car and GT action. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, we have plenty of racing to get involved with, whether that be as a competitor or just as a viewer. And we welcome you along in whatever capacity it is that you want to be a part of it. We are also not that far away, I don't think, from getting our first race of the evening underway here tonight at Barcelona, and an interesting grid that we've got assembled. There are the cars lining up on the grid. So Oliver Gibson on the right, on the left, Elliot Dalton-Ayres in the Hyundai. Then you've got Nicky Taylor and Jack Smith. So the BMW starting first and fourth at the front of the grid. We do then also have Josh Martin and Alok Iyengar a little bit further down the order in their Beamers, both looking to try and break through towards the front of the pack as well. And expect lots of them to be on that hybrid button on the run down towards turn number one, because that is where it's a long way to that first corner. The timing line, as you can see, the start line is not quite halfway down that straight, so they've got plenty of time to use the hybrid. It's downhill as well into that first corner, but it's also very often the scene of a little bit of carnage and chaos, as we saw in fact in the MotoGP race on Sunday afternoon from this very circuit. So hopefully they'll all be able to negotiate it pretty cleanly, and we'll have a clean start to the race. But Jack, I'm not entirely sure who the favourite is for this victory. Can Jack Smith come through from fourth on the grid, do you think? I'm just not sure what sort of race pace he's going to have.
No, I'm quite interested. If I'm honest, I know we're not supposed to have favourites, but Oliver Gibson, I'm hoping he can convert this. And we don't have long to go, actually, because the red lights have come on. The engine notes are rising, and that means one thing on a Wednesday night here at the VRRC. We are racing around Catalonia, and it's a great start by Oliver Gibson. We would come to expect that, given the rear-wheel drive advantage. And then here comes Jack Smith as well, carving his way through the middle of Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor looking like he's going to get left out on the outside here, but Oliver Gibson has really pulled away as Elliot Dalton-Ayres defends from Jack Smith, championship leader, as they go through turn 1 and 2. It's still Elliot in second place, Jack Smith in third, as Kyle Felvers has managed to get past Nicky Taylor and up into fourth place.
Yeah, so not a great run through the first few corners for Nicky, an even worse run though for Alok Iyengar and Kenny Press. Press, I don't think, has even made it to turn 1. Iyengar did make it out of turn 2, but was then pointing the wrong way, as here now we've got side-by-side action between Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvers. Taylor trying to come back at Felvers for fourth place. It works on the inside at turn 4, but that's the outside. Down the hill into turn 5, and Joel Lask with a typical Joel Lask move there, launches up the inside of Andy Carroll. I don't think it quite worked. Felvers is ahead of Taylor, but Joel Lask and Andy Carroll still door handle to door handle. Fabrizio Torri is in behind them as well as they turn through the uphill chicane, and Carroll hangs on around the outside.
Yeah, I think if Kyle Felvers was looking at that in his rearview mirror, the Joel Lask lunge, he was probably just sighing a sigh of relief, the fact that it wasn't him this week. If you remember a week ago in his last lap drama at wherever we were, Mugello, it was quite dramatic, wasn't it? But here comes Joel Lask once again on Andy Carroll into the hairpin. Oliver Gibson said he's going to be expecting lots of lunges into there. It's not quite the overtaking opportunity it once was, given the fact that we're using the new layout, but it hasn't deterred Joel Lask. But I'm not sure much deters Joel Lask.
No, he's never one to back out of an opportunity to attack, and actually gets roughed up himself there by Fabrizio Torri, who tried to find a gap on the inside, and it just didn't quite work. So Fabrizio Torri has to back out of it. No harm, no foul, though, and they will continue on their way. Right then, Gibson has survived the opening lap in the race lead. That's good stuff. And now they're all using the hybrid down the main straight towards turn 1 as Gibson tries to enact his race plan that he told us about pre-race, just slowly, lap by lap, building a gap over those behind him. But so far, Dalton-Ayres very much going with him. Jack Smith then about a second further back in third, and Jack Smith looks like he's on the ropes a bit here, doesn't he? He's got Kyle Felvers clambering all over him, and Jack Smith just doesn't have the pace to go with the top two right now.
Yeah, that weight will be really hurting Jack Smith. We saw him struggling qualifying for the first time this series, didn't we? With a little bit of a spin, and that'll be because a lot of these turns are sort of going up or downhill, aren't they? And whereas you even into the braking zone, into the hairpin, turn 10, I think you're sort of going down, and you're having to brake so much earlier if you've got 50 kilograms of ballast on board, so you really are susceptible to big lunges from behind. So Jack Smith is going to have to be really careful about that. Whereas Oliver Gibson in his BMW only has 15 kilograms of ballast on board, so it is going to be handling like a completely different car, and certainly the setup seems to be favouring it.
Yeah, definitely seems to be the case. Up the hill they climb then towards turn number 9, and around to turn 10 they will go again. And looking further back in the pack, I am looking for Josh Martin. And I can't see him. I don't know what's... Oh, there's Josh Martin. What's he doing back here? That's 15th place for Josh Martin and some way away from the rest of the pack. So he's obviously had a drama somewhere. Either that or he's realised that his best chance of stealing some limelight this season is just to throw race 1 and start near the front in race 2. Maybe that's his strategy at the moment, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe he's been caught up in something a little bit unfortunate in the early stages, and we might not see him appearing at the front of the field in this particular race. The leaders, though, come across the line, and Oliver Gibson continuing to lead the way. Dalton Ayres dropping a couple of tenths that time, and actually Jack Smith now seeming to find a bit more speed.
Yeah, maybe the BMW's tyres have warmed up slightly. I'm not entirely sure how long that might take around here, but it's certainly something that the front-wheel drives will fire up their tyres a little bit quicker than the rear-wheel drive BMWs, which just seems to be the case of everything. Somebody goes grass cutting. Well, not grass cutting, but painting, anyway, across that inside line. Not entirely sure who that was, but Jack Smith, yeah, he's... maybe just got rid of the attacker Kyle Felders, but I wouldn't say he's exactly close to pressuring Elliot Dalton Ayres anytime soon.
No, it looked like he was going on to the main straight, and then by the end of it, he was way, way back. So I think Jack Smith clearly struggling for straight line speed, and that I'm sure is a part of the adjustments that have been made, both the BOP and the weight that he's carrying on board his car. Nicky Taylor here, I've just spotted taking some very interesting lines as well, very tight lines out of some of these corners, so trying something different to try and keep up with the group of cars ahead. So far, though, I have to say this is turning into a, dare I say it, fairly typical Barcelona race, isn't it, really? Everyone pretty close together, but just sort of all stuck in one long line. It takes someone to try something, doesn't it, really, to spark a bit of life into this. Right now, everyone very evenly matched, and until someone decides to go for a bit of a lunge, we might not see a huge amount of shuffling of the order.
Yeah, it's a bit reminiscent of F1 around here. Not even the race right now. It's F1 testing, pre-season testing. But I'm sure we will see a little bit of... Like, you can always rely on the likes of Nicky or Kyle or Joel to sort of throw a little bit of spice into the mix, can't we? They're not... Whoa! There was a big back-end moment there for, I think, Nicky Taylor. I don't know if that was just me lagging or whether he was actually sideways going into that final corner. But this will be suiting Oliver Gibson down to the ground. He might not have that much extra speed compared to Elliot Dalton Ayres, but he has enough to be eking out a little bit of a gap right now. He's about 0.2 of a second quicker on that previous lap, and you keep doing that, all of a sudden, over a 20-minute stint, you're going to be winning by 2 or 3 seconds.
And that's exactly what he said he wanted to do, just steadily build that gap lap by lap, so he's doing exactly that right now. Now, here's some side-by-side action. Craig Curtis has had a moment, I think, through the first couple of corners. Jordan Taylor goes through, and now Andy Dorman up the inside of both of them. Dorman might gain 2 places here, actually. He's on the hybrid. Oh, Curtis didn't really know where to go there. Jordan Taylor getting sandwiched in the middle. Can Dorman complete that manoeuvre? You've also got the number 11 of Nathan Smith joining in this group as well. Nathan Smith's getting quicker week on week, isn't he? Starting to mix it now with some of the midfield, the regular midfielders. And he's now trying to get around the outside of Craig Curtis, the Welshman, leaving him plenty of space. Dorman did get past Jordan Taylor, by the way, so 2 places gained there for the opportunistic Dorman. And Craig Curtis does just about manage to keep the number 11 Cupra behind him.
Yeah, Nathan Smith is trying everything, isn't he? He's going offline through all the corners that we might not expect people to be going offline for. But he's very ambitious with it, and he's trying his best, that's for sure. We can see a couple of people using their hybrids going down that straight into turn 10 as he tries to get his words out of his mouth. The likes of Dorman, Taylor, and Curtis. I wouldn't be surprised if Oliver Gibson is trying to just measure his way through his hybrids. As Elliot Dalton Ayres can't quite see. But I wonder how many he's been churning out to try and get involved with the fight for first place, whether he's being nice and patient, knowing there's 12 minutes to go.
That's a good point. As you say, that jumps on the hybrid, whilst Gibson, the leader, doesn't, interestingly. So that will be as they hit the main straight. So expect to see that gap. Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that gap really come down by about half a second or more. It's coming down. That's the difference that the hybrid makes down the main straight. So Dalton Ayres making a big gain there at the expense of a hybrid use. But if it gets him back on terms with the race leader, then it might well be worth doing. So the lead gap did come down. It then immediately starts creeping back up again. Now, this is one of those circuits I would have thought where maybe the BMWs are going to have an edge in the second half of the race. It's another circuit a bit like Brno, lots of long sort of high and medium speed right-handers where that left front tyre on the front wheel drive cars is going to take a pounding. And that perhaps will favour the Beamers as we move deeper into the race. Say that we're already into the middle third of it though. 8 minutes down, 12 minutes still to go. To the pit lane has gone John Jones, I believe that was, wasn't it? So John Jones in some trouble already. Apart from that, a relatively clean race so far.
Yeah, and just a bit of an update on the hybrids. I know you can all see it at home, but I was sort of... Ooh, Oliver Gibson. No, I'm guessing that's a timing error on the left-hand side. I don't think Oliver Gibson... Yeah, there we go. He's jumped back up to the top. Just had a slight heart attack while I was looking. But yeah, he is conserving those hybrids a little bit, hasn't he? He has used them, but I know he used one off the line. So there goes one. Every so often, he sort of uses one, sprinkles it round when he's probably feeling a little bit of pressure from Elliot Dalton Ayres, maybe when he's within half a second, whereas Elliot is certainly using it a little bit more aggressively, shall we say. Jack Smith, this is probably the most aggressive we've seen him use the hybrid, and it's not in an attempt to overtake second place, is it? It's to try and keep Kyle Felvers behind, who is not being dropped. He's being very stubborn right now, is Kyle.
He is, absolutely, and needs to be really, because Carl's a little way down in the championship order at the moment. Needs to try and start outscoring Jack Smith. They all need to try and outscore Jack Smith. Now, look at that lead gap. 0.3 of a second it's down to now. So, yes, Dalton Ayres is using a bit more of the hybrid than the race leader, Oliver Gibson, but it's working. He's forcing a defensive move out of the leading BMW now, and all of a sudden it's game on at the front of the field. Gibson hanging on by less than a car length. Same story then for third place between Jack Smith and Carl Felvers. But can Elliot Dalton Ayres now try and make a move against the race leader, Oliver Gibson? If he's in the mirrors, filling the mirrors of Oliver Gibson, then that means he's also in the mind of Oliver Gibson. And this is where you can try and maybe play those mind games on the driver in front. You know, if Dalton Ayres is thinking about this cleverly, he will know that Gibson's desperate to get a win. He hasn't won a race for a long time. He's not maybe as used to winning races as some of the other drivers that Elliot might find himself going toe-to-toe with. Use that to your advantage. Gibson's going to be feeling the pressure the deeper into this race we go, and therefore maybe, just maybe, there's a mistake to be forced out of him.
Yeah, well, I am hoping that Oliver can eventually get a race victory. I'm sort of bored of calling in the postcode lottery because he just keeps knocking on the door, doesn't he? But he's never quite managed to get there. Whereas Elliot Dalton Ayres, thank you very much. Wait until you hear my Josh Martin one. I've got it prepped and ready. Yeah, but whereas Elliot Dalton Ayres has won a fair few, hasn't he? Let's face it. He hasn't necessarily been as dominant as some of the drivers winning from the front, but he has won races before. So we know that he can move forward. We know that he can pile the pressure on. Let's wait and see what happens. With 9 minutes left, the front two, though, has certainly pulled away.
Yes, they have indeed. Oliver Gibson now using the hybrid as well to try and get away from Elliot Dalton Ayres as we focus in on the Jordan Taylor, Craig Curtis and Nathan Smith battle, going on for 10th position, this one at the moment. Down the main straight they go. Nathan Smith pulls out of the slipstream perhaps a little bit too early there to try and make a move on Craig Curtis, who himself is using the hybrid. So too Jordan Taylor ahead, and that means there's not really any benefit to be had into the big braking zone at turn 1. Nathan Smith shows his nose, so does Craig Curtis. More to defend, I think, from the Cupra behind him, which climbs the curb, but isn't ultimately able to find a way through. So positions stay as they were. Oliver Gibson also able to withstand that pressure from Elliot Dalton Ayres on the previous lap. The gap starting to grow again now, up over 0.8 of a second. So you're not missing anything else at the front of the field. This right now is the best battle on track, and Jordan Taylor, again, with a bit of an absence of pace tonight, strangely, really having to get his elbows out here to keep Curtis and Smith behind.
Yeah, Jordan Taylor is the heaviest of these drivers with 20 kilos on board, but he is struggling, isn't he? I think he was the driver that we saw cutting the second corner completely, so he's struggling to get the car slowed down, he's struggling to get the balance. Ultimately, he's just struggling, isn't he? Which is a bit of a shame, because we like to see Jordan Taylor right towards the front, as Smith and Curtis are now trading positions, and potentially trading paints, actually. We'll have to wait and see, but it was getting a little bit close for comfort back there. Joel Last, Fabrizio Torri, a driver that we, well, he was the driver of the round last time, wasn't he, Andy? And we just really haven't mentioned him at all so far in this race. He's not quite had it come his way, has it? Maybe just the last week's track Mugello just suited him a little bit better, but I don't think Barcelona's that much different in terms of driving style myself. But yeah, equally, he's clearly struggling.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely less of that sort of direction changing and, you know, the single line nature of Mugello. There's one quick way round there, isn't there? Once you learn that, you should be on to a winner, really. But as we say, oh dear, it's all kicked off in the background. Fabrizio Torri's up the inside of Joel Last. That's suddenly the least interesting thing that just appeared on my screen, because that Jordan Taylor, Craig Curtis and Nathan Smith battle just went belly up, didn't it, through the final corner. Something happened. Taylor comes back out in front of Nathan Smith, and I'm not entirely sure where Craig Curtis went to. He's disappeared about 4.5 seconds behind them. So never a good sign when two cars appear at the back of shot completely sideways, but I think they've all at least been able to carry on, albeit with a bit of distance between them. Now Joel Last coming back here at Fabrizio Torri, and Fabrizio might be about to get a lesson in VRRC racing here, because Joel Last is one of the feistier drivers that we've got on the grid, and Fabrizio trying to go around the outside of him. That was a brave thing to do. Joel, in fairness, left him space. You're on board now with Joel Last. That is Fabrizio Torri to your left. The next corner is a left-hander, and that should favour the Italian, who just tries to squeeze across in front of Joel on the way into the turn even. Manages to do that, but Joel again immediately tries to come back and up the inside into turn 9. That's not really a passing place, Joel. They lean on each other and off into the gravel, or towards the gravel anyway, goes Fabrizio Torri. Joel Last is through, and maybe to Andy Dorman.
Yeah, that was a bit of a risk, wasn't it, from Joel Last? As you said, not really an overtaking position, whereas you're always better to get that corner nailed and then obviously go down into the hairpin and then don't do the overtaking, which is pretty much what Andy Dorman did. You know, he can't be complaining, 2 birds with 1 stone and everything. He didn't even have to work for it. He's up into 7th place as Fabrizio Torri now breezes past Joel Last. I wonder if that's Joel letting him through somewhat and realising that he bumped him off wide a little bit. But yeah, they're going to have to reignite that one. But now they're also going to have to think about going forward on Andy Dorman, so they both lost a position.
Yes, absolutely. So Joel Last making friends again, and well, he has at least now dropped back behind Fabrizio. That's Jordan Taylor in the pit lane in the background, by the way. So Jordan Taylor bails for the pit lane with 6 minutes to go. Hopefully he gets back out there, otherwise he won't be eligible for the reversed grid draw, as through the first couple of corners comes this even more intensifying battle, isn't it, between Dorman, Torri and Joel Last. And Andy Dorman picking up the pieces in typical Andy Dorman fashion, really, into 7th place. But now can he defend that 7th place? Takes a much tighter line there through turn 3. That seemed to benefit him, actually. It was also on the hybrid. That will have helped matters as he tries now to pull away from Torri. I've noticed Dorman using the hybrid through that 3rd corner on a couple of occasions in this race, proving that there's not just the one obvious place to jump on that push to pass button.
No, I am curious to see how Oliver Gibson, who's pulled away from Elliot Dalton, whether he's been using it a little bit more as well in various points of the circuit, because ultimately it's a bit of a dark art, and I mentioned it nearly every week, but you have to practice on all your laps during the week. You have to practice initiating it in different zones of the lap as well, because ultimately you might be going into certain corners 5 to 10 miles an hour quicker than you used to, and that'll change your braking position and everything like that. And that can all of a sudden turn a really good overtaking opportunity into a disastrously embarrassing spin, and nobody wants that, do they, while they're on the stream. Going right and wide is Fabrizio Torri, maybe trying to get some kind of cutback or lunge up the inside of Andy Dorman. No, I think the camera was getting a little bit kind on him there, but he's just delved back into the middle of this ongoing battle. Last 4 minutes. It's going to be interesting to see how this one cracks out. Josh Martin is still in last place. He'll probably end up getting the pole position for race number 2, and I can only imagine, Andy, that you were right, and that's probably what he was going for.
Yeah, let's go with that, shall we? He's certainly faded from the back of the pack in this one. Oh, Nathan Smith's in now. So that's 2 drivers who were involved in that little collision a couple of laps ago who have now pitted. Jordan Taylor did rejoin, didn't he? So I wonder if are they serving penalties or just getting repairs then? I'm not entirely sure on that one. Meanwhile, Andy Carroll coming on strong in the second half of the race. We see this very often, don't we, at high tyre degradation circuits. Andy Carroll tends to come to the fore. He's in 6th place right now. He is catching, well, has nearly caught Nicky Taylor, and he's got more hybrids available to him than Nicky has as well. So a top 5 could be beckoning here for Andy.
Nicky Taylor is obviously second place in the championship, so he really won't want to lose out on points if he can help it, especially as Jack Smith is scoring not badly. I mean, you know, it's pretty damn good over most people's sort of barometer of how well they're doing, but a third place is sort of not bad, is it, for Jack Smith in terms of his current championship leading. But yeah, Andy Carroll is looking rather strong, half a second in it to Nicky Taylor, and then there's quite a gap, isn't there, to Carl Belvis, who's just fallen off the back of Jack Smith. Not really there or thereabouts, is it? The top 5 seem pretty taken care. Sorry, the top 4 seem pretty taken care of, whereas this one is the most interesting potential battle that we've got going on into the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, there is bunching going on though behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres, and Jack Smith is close enough going onto the pit straight that a bit of hybrid could pull him up alongside Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Actually, look, you can see that in the distance, they were absolutely nose to tail, both of them on the hybrid. Has Jack Smith got anything here for the Hyundai ahead of him then? Across the line they go. You can see he was 4.5 tenths quicker than the second place man on that lap was Jack Smith. Does he duck out of the slipstream here to try and have a go into turn 1? How much of a risk is he willing to take? We're starting the final lap of the race now, and the Phoenix Sim Racing Hyundai under pressure from the DK Power BMW, and Jack Smith not making a move for the time being. But this is where Jack does, I think, need to start thinking championship. Third place is not a bad result by anyone's measure, really, and going for a risky move against Elliot Dalton-Ayres, well, that might be a risk too far. I'm not sure whether he's going to be willing to do anything too dicey here.
Well, Elliot did have less hybrids than Jack a couple of laps ago, so that might be why it's leaning towards the BMW as favourites, particularly going into this one. There is a question on whether this may well be the last lap of the race as well. I think we're going to get... Yeah, you think it probably is. Yeah, 50-odd seconds to go, and we're only about halfway through, aren't we? So Oliver Gibson up the road there. He does have a couple of seconds to maybe bleed off the power. The problem is, if you do that, and then it's not the last lap, all of a sudden everybody's caught up with you, so I wouldn't advise it. But Elliot Dalton-Ayres certainly can't bleed off the power here, can he? Because he has got a BMW headache, not only up front, but just behind him.
Yes, he has, down to turn 10. For what I think will be the final time, 30 seconds on the clock. It's going to be close, actually, isn't it? Because, of course, they've got this shorter final sector now. So let's wait and see whether Gibson's going to have one more time around. He might do, actually. That is the penultimate corner. Here comes the final corner. He's so far ahead that I think he is just going to beat the clock here, is he? 8 seconds to go out of the final turn. Does he lift off to try and get the checkered flag? Is he going to cross the line? He is going to cross the line with a second to spare, so he could have backed off, but chose not to. So we do now go on to the final lap of the race, and that's bad news for Elliot Dalton-Ayres, because it means that he's got another lap now to try and defend from Jack Smith. So Jack Smith didn't manage to attack him down the main straight, but he has closed right back in on the second place man, as Oliver Gibson does now begin his final lap of the race.
Yeah, you know, Oliver Gibson actually went on the hybrid to try and get across the line. I reckon he's got a message in his ears off Jack Smith saying, you know what, just try and get across the line, because I reckon one more lap and I potentially got this. Although he doesn't look like he's in a very talkative mood, does Jack Smith. That's about as concentrated as we've ever seen him, though, and about as grabby with the wheel that we've ever seen him as well. We can see him right in full attack mode now, going on to the racing line. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, he's just driving defensively, isn't he? Every single corner, he's probably going to be towards the inside of the circuit, ready and waiting to see if that BMW's got anything to surprise him with, shall we say. Going through the S's up the hill now, this is going to be potentially where Jack Smith is hurt a little bit with that weight on board. Elliot Dalton-Ayres jumps over the curves and gets a nice exit there, doesn't he? Going through turn, I think it's 9, a little bit of soaring at the wheel for Jack Smith. Couldn't quite get the car set up right. Oliver Gibson is going to win this race if he survives the last couple of corners, that is. But I think Jack Smith is going to potentially have to settle for third. He's quite a long way back here, and I think he's out of hybrids.
Yeah, let's see. He's going to need a really good run through the last couple of corners. I'm not sure he's going to get there, although Dalton-Ayres takes a very wide line there into the long right-hander, picks up the late apex, though, so that's not the end of the world, and I think he should now be okay. But for Oliver Gibson, it is going to be a first victory of the season, a first victory here at the VRRC since the penultimate round of the GTV3 Championship, and only his second ever race victory with us. Congratulations to Oliver Gibson. Lights to flag here at Barcelona. Second place goes to Elliot Dalton-Ayres, third to Jack Smith, and fourth position Carl Belvis. Oliver Gibson quite rightly celebrates the race victory, whilst Nicky Taylor comes home in fifth position. The rest of them cycling in behind. Andy Carroll sixth, Andy Dorman seventh. Fabrizio Torri pitted at the end of the race. Now, that's interesting. He should still be classified, I think, in 8th place, even though he was in the pit lane, but maybe he was running out of fuel. Or maybe he thought that that wasn't the final lap. Maybe he thought it had ended before that. I'm not so sure. But anyway, we'll wait and see where he gets classified. 9th should then be Joel Lask, with Nathan Smith inside the top 10. Another solid performance there from Nathan as he continues to get better and better. But Oliver Gibson, it doesn't get much better than that. That was a Jack Smith-esque performance, that really, wasn't it, Jack? Who managed to lead from lights to flag, manage that gap nicely. We'll get Jack's thoughts, along with Oliver Gibson's thoughts, after this very quick break. Welcome back, everyone, to the VRRC, where the first race of the night here at Barcelona has just been completed, and it was a lights to flag victory in the end for our pole sitter, Oliver Gibson. Oliver, back in the commentary box again, and well, you managed to do it, and you actually managed to, I think, word for word, execute your pre-race plan there. You got a good start and gradually built that gap lap by lap.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, it was a perfect race for me. I mean, at the start, I was a bit like, oh, here we go, Elliot's flying as he usually does, and then I think the tyres started to come into the window, and then I found my rhythm, and I just did what I said I was going to do, put the laps in and keep going, and then, yeah, perfect race.
Yeah, but literally perfect race. You even managed to set the fastest lap, I think, right at the end. You crossed the line with a second to spare, and we were saying you could have backed off and made that the final lap, but you were still pushing because it's worth extra points, and you're very much in this championship race, aren't you?
I hope so. I mean, I just got to keep getting these results, getting these fastest laps, podiums, hopefully more wins. Hopefully it's not as long as the wait for this one. But, yeah, I mean, I would give anything to just be in the championship fight at the end. I think I just missed out last series by a couple points. So if I can get in this one by the end, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way you're going, that really should be doable. It's been a very consistent start to the season. It's now important, isn't it, having got that race win, to keep that consistency going in race 2. Easier said than done sometimes, given some of the action that we tend to see in these reverse grid races. What is the game plan here? What's a result that you would be satisfied with from race 2?
I don't know, to be honest. The last few race 2s have been pretty bad for me. I've been caught up in incidents not caused by other people, by myself. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to try and get my way through, watch out for incidents, try not to put myself in an incident like I did last week, where I had the little spin and stuff. So, yeah, hopefully just clean race, clean overtakes, and just top 5 would be good, but I think that might be a little bit too ambitious, but you never know.
You never know. Just keep out of trouble, and you could easily pick up another good result. But for now, Oliver, really well done on that race victory. Hopefully, like you said, it won't be quite as long before we're seeing you win another race. But for now, a really good start to the night. Well done.
Thank you.
So Oliver Gibson victorious in our first race of the evening. Chased hard in the early stages by Elliot Dalton-Ayres, though, and he can now catch up with Jack Oliphant.
Yes, Elliot, congratulations on second place. That looked like quite hard work, though, wasn't it? Rather you like shooting forward on Oliver Gibson, or even trying to defend from behind at the end there. You must be quite sweaty, I imagine.
Yes, I'm quite sweaty. I mean, the first laps were brilliant. Managed to, me and Ollie managed to build a gap from the pack behind, and I was gaining on it. And I was planning where to make the move, but tires just fell off a cliff, and then I was just going back and back and back and falling into the radar of Jack and Kyle. But the first maybe 3/4 of the race went quite nicely, but the last quarter were pretty bad.
I was going to say, how worried were you in that last couple of moments? Because we saw on board with Jack Smith that you were defending quite heavily on the last lap. Did you really think that he was going to send the lunge, or were you sort of expecting him to maybe play the championship game?
I don't know, really. I didn't really know what he was going to do. I mean, I saw he got a pretty good run out of the 4th or 5th corner, so I just defended it. But luckily I saved a couple of hybrids and just used them maybe on the penultimate and last lap, and just managed to keep that second place away from Jack.
You obviously are not really in the championship right now. You're sort of 5th place. You obviously wanted to go a little bit further forward. It's quite close to 2nd. Are the race twos an opportunity where you can see potentially these points are going to be gained on the likes of Jack Smith? And does that mean you're going to be slightly more aggressive than you normally would be?
Maybe in like the last 3/4 of the race, but the first first 2 laps, you have to be very careful with what's happening in front. I mean, in the past, I've been caught up in some race 2 action, which has ultimately cost me points. But race 2s this championship seem to be going quite nicely. But I don't really want to jinx myself, so let's hope we have a good one.
Any worry on the weather?
No, I really like the rain. I mean, I'm quick in it, and it's just fun. So yeah, I'm not bothered.
Fair enough. Well, congratulations, Elliot, on the second place. Good luck for race number 2.
Thanks, Jack.
Yes, well done, Elliot, on that second place finish. And, well, we have to go all the way down to the 3rd step of the podium to speak to our championship leader. Jack, what's going on? Your season's falling apart, mate.
Oh no, it's horrific, isn't it? 3rd place. What will I do? No, it was a good race. It was really good. Yeah, I've got 50 kilos of ballast. I'm dragging that around with me, and I'm trying to find ways to get around it. But this track just really doesn't want to sit the weight down with me. So yeah, we tried as best as we could, and I got within like a 10th and a half of fastest lap. So the pace is still there, and tyre wear was good. I was trying my best not to kill the tyres, and it worked towards the end. I was catching Elliot bit by bit, and I was watching for Kyle using his push to passes, but I think we used him in the same place. But yeah, no, Ollie did super well. I think he dropped a bit of ballast, so I told him just to go for it. He didn't believe in himself at first, but I knew when I saw the times he was doing, he was going to win the first race. So yeah, really happy for him.
You mentioned the ballast then, and that's something maybe our viewers might not fully understand. We know that ballast slows a car down, but where in particular is it affecting you? Is it just an overall lack of pace? Is it affecting the handling? And if so, where specifically?
Yeah, you can notice it in a bit of everywhere, really. So like on the straights, if I'm right behind someone, I'll probably stay with them and maybe catch them. But you do lose a bit of top end, and you lose a bit of front and all this sort of stuff. So it's stuff you have to drive around and change your racing style to suit per race. But yeah, I mean, I'm used to 50 kilos by now, so I've just been sort of dragging it around and trying to do the best lap I can just to forget about the ballast and try and go for the fastest lap anyways.
And of course, all of those things are things that you could do without in race 2, because you've got to now try and make some progress. Very hard to do that in a car that perhaps isn't performing all that well down the straight. So how inventive do you think you're going to have to be in this race to make some progress?
Yeah, I mean, I came up with a little strategy at Mugello where I stagger my push to pass to give me some top end towards the end of the straights, and it seemed to work. But yeah, it's just you'll see it on the stream where I just fall behind a bit to begin with, and then I push that push to pass, and all of a sudden I'm back there right at the end of the straight where it matters. So we'll try that. We'll try and stay out of trouble, and we'll just see what happens. I just don't want to get tagged really, and hopefully the weather stays good, but if not, I've got the change of tyres ready just in case.
Yes, good to be prepared. We'll let you go over those final preparations then, Jack. Well done on the podium finish. Some more good points in the bank. Good luck for race 2.
Cheers, Andy.
So Jack Smith was third in that race, and as much as we like to joke that was a disastrous result, it really wasn't, was it? He's still scoring some good points. He's still going to be looking good in the championship. But Jack Oliphant, you teased it a couple of times there. There is perhaps a threat of a bit of change in the weather for this second race, and that could really throw the cat among the pigeons.
Yes, we've got a bit of a heat wave here in Britain this week, haven't we? But it could be potentially that a little bit of a doubt of rain to dampen the spirits of a few of the drivers. I think the rear-wheel drives, they're going to be the ones that are fearing it the most, because, of course, if you go into sort of changeable conditions, the rear-wheel drives don't like that on slicks. All of a sudden, you can't go anywhere near the accelerator, whereas the front-wheel drives don't really mind it as much. So I think it's going to be interesting. But Josh Martin on pole position, Chris Blakey in second place. Andy, take it away.
Here we go then. Can Josh Martin recreate his race 2 win from a week ago at Mugello? It's time to find out. The lights go out, away they will go. And, well, Josh Martin looks like he's made a decent start, it must be said. Look, Iyengar also trying to make some progress in his rear-wheel drive BMW. But Josh Martin has gone. Look at the lead that he's got already. Well out of striking range into turn 1. They are 4 wide behind, though. And involved Oliver Gibson and Jack Smith. Craig Curtis there late on the brakes, gets into Joel Lask. Around goes Lask. Around goes Curtis. Slaps into the side of Oliver Gibson's BMW. Amazingly, I think they all kept pointing in the right direction, but lots of ground lost, and that involved again a couple of drivers who potentially could have appeared at the front of the field towards the end of this race. Josh Martin, by the way, has also lost the race lead. Chris Blakey has found his way through. Jordan Taylor second, so I'm not sure what happened to Josh Martin as we cut back to all of the action behind him, but he is down to third place, and that was a very frenetic opening couple of corners.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if Chris Blakey actually does have the race lead. I sort of thought it may be a timing glitch, but it would have fixed itself by now, you'd have thought, wouldn't you? Jack Smith is in a little bit of no man's land. He's the only driver that's got a little bit of space to and from behind him. So it's going to be see if he can push forward a little bit. I'm sure he won't have space for too much longer. Here's Kyle Felvers and Joel Lask. Ooh, this could be interesting, couldn't it, as we go down towards the hairpin. Kyle Felvers in front, Joel Lask just behind Oliver Gibson, then trying to, and Elliot Dalton-Ayres as well, actually trying to mop up any kind of spillages. There is Elliot Dalton-Ayres up the inside, trying to follow through with Kyle Felvers, and Joel Lask really trying it, but to be fair to both of them, giving each other plenty of racing room, lots of respect being given there as they go through the right hand. Kyle Felvers on the outside, Joel Lask lunging it, still sort of just about there. I think it's going to be Joel Lask's position. It is indeed. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is trying to find his way through, but doesn't quite make a mistake.
Really good, respectful racing by both of them. They both now get bottled in behind Fabrizio Torri, though, and so Felvers comes back up the inside of Lask again. All this has got trouble written all over it. They're banging doors as they head down the pit straight. Here comes Gibson up the inside. Dalton-Ayres is going to try and find a gap in the middle as well. Hold your breath, everyone. Dalton-Ayres, I think, is going up the middle of them. 3 wide, down towards the first corner, and all of this going on right ahead of our race one winner. Someone has to give, and in the end, it's Torri who ends up way wide over the runoff area and waves them all by. That's a shame for our winner last time at Mugello, and he will lose an awful lot of ground. Falls almost to the very back of the field as a result of that, with only Kenny Press right behind him, so amazingly no contact as far as I can see in any of that, and they all live to tell the tale. Up towards turn 3 they go. Lask and Felvers still, sorry, that's Dalton-Ayres now and Felvers side by side, and Kyle also sort of lost out in all of that, didn't he? Lost a couple of places, I think.
Yeah, well, so did Oliver Gibson, and to be fair, I don't think anybody's
that's
winning this, as Alok Iyengar is certainly losing it. He's been spanned round, but Reece Bell falling to the back of the order as Jack Smith is gone behind Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Now Craig Curtis, Carl Felvers, they're still trying to figure each other out within 3 minutes. Is it's Jack Smith, isn't it, trying to clamber all over the curves. Hard to keep up with this one, Andy.
Oh, well, that was Taylor into the side of Felvers as they went through turn 9. Jack Smith got sideways, though. Smith was involved in that Iyengar and Reece Bell collision somehow, but I think he managed to gather it together. But he has dropped a number of places. He got Curtis now on the inside of him as well. And so Jack Smith, who had made really good progress up the order, now has it all, or some of it, to do again. Anyway, has Curtis gone through? Not quite. Couldn't quite close the door into the right-hander. Jack Smith gets back up the inside again and tries to bring with him Kyle Felvers as they turn towards the final 2 corners of this second lap of the race, a race that refuses to calm down, at least in the midfield. At the head of the field, though, Chris Blakey is 2.3 seconds up the road. Chris Blakey has checked out at the front of the pack. Jordan Taylor second. Andy Carroll, probably the best of the gains in the early laps, up into third place, having started in the lower third of the grid. Then it's Nathan Smith, tagging along with them. And then here, Elliot Dalton with Josh Martin. So Josh Martin just seemingly doesn't have the pace tonight. He may have had a moment on the first lap, but he's now subsequently lost more places.
Yeah, it's really struggling, isn't he? It's we haven't seen him yet. We haven't seen any of his battles because we've been so focused on the one at the back end of the field, i.e. this one, that we haven't seen whether it's whether there's damage to the car, or whether it's just he's missing braking zones, or what it is. But Josh Martin is not enjoying Catalonia, that's for sure. As Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felvert again a bit too close for comfort, I would say, and I don't reckon Nicky Taylor's going to back out of this one as he's on the rear wing and on the rear left of Kyle Felvert. No, he's on the inside as Kyle just about gives him enough room. They are giving each other just enough room every so often, but you can sort of feel a bit of a coming together coming again, can't you, Andy?
Yes, you can a little bit, can't you? And Oliver Gibson's stuck in the middle of it. Taylor's gone wide over the curb. Felvers gets alongside, but that's the outside for turn 9, and I think he's going to have to play second best on this occasion. Slots back behind. Wonderfully close racing this though. Millimetres between front and rear bumper, and Gibson sort of diving around behind, trying to find an opening. Has he got to run on the inside into turn 10? No, not quite. Felvers is late on the brakes. Almost too late on the brakes, but way later on the brakes was Gibson behind. Has he gone right round the outside? No, that was never likely to work, and he slots back in behind Felvers once again. Through the penultimate, or the final couple of corners they will head. This battle pack remaining incredibly close together. Jack Smith, remember, just ahead of this group, who did fall back behind Craig Curtis. So Craig Curtis with a really good run here into 8th position. Jack Smith only 9th right now, and with people like Elliot Dalton, for example, up there inside the top 5, this is a golden opportunity for someone like Elliot to take some points out of the championship leader, as Andy Carroll takes second from Jordan Taylor.
I'll tell you what, Chris Blakey will be absolutely loving it, won't he? Because it's taken a lot of the front runners an awfully long time to get forward. And normally we see them potentially within 5 minutes. At least one of them has cracked the top 3. But none of them have been able to crack the top 3. Elliot Dalton is in 5th, but he's a long way back from this fight for second place. And the fight for second place, all it's doing is slowing each other up, because Andy Carroll and Jordan Taylor and Nathan Smith seem to be fairly keen to knock 7 bells out of each other. A bit like this one here between Carl Felvers and Nicky Taylor. Oliver Gibson, this is a bit of a BMW sandwich, isn't it? Oliver Gibson watching these two fights, and Jack Smith watching them in the rearview mirrors. Oliver Gibson probably can't wait to just get through at least one of them and get gone himself and try and catch up to Smith. At the moment, it's not quite happening, as Felvers clambering all over the back of that Nicky Taylor.
Yeah, these two just latch together in combat, aren't they, in this race? They haven't left each other alone pretty much for the first 7 minutes of racing. They're single file for the time being as they head around turn 9. But only a matter of time, I'm sure, before Felvers has another go at getting through. Up the road, that was Joel Lask slipping up the inside of Josh Martin. So Lask now to 6th, Martin back down to 7th place. And it won't be long, will it, Jack, before Josh Martin sort of slips back into this group, and that could create a bit more action, because Josh does have the potential to become a bit of a cork in the bottle here, doesn't he? He's clearly not as quick as this group of cars behind. They're all battling intensely already. Imagine what's going to happen when they come up against this clearly very wayward BMW.
Yeah, that super BMW is handling quite atrocious, isn't it, at the moment? All the way down to 7th place. So he can't quite get up to speed, unfortunately. Maybe he can just use that umbrella and fly away sooner rather than later, because he is not enjoying Catalonia whatsoever.
You're on form tonight, Jack, I'll give you that. Here comes...
I wrote that 20 minutes ago.
Waited for your opportunity. Well done. Andy Dorman there, under threat, was he? No, he went past Oliver Gibson, actually. So Andy Dorman gaining a place in the Ford Focus. Gibson not really able to make the progress up through the order that I'm sure he was hoping. Onto the brakes into turn 4. Fabrizio Torri now lining up behind him as well. But mysterious race this for Oliver Gibson. I know it's a difficult place at which to overtake, but given the speed that he had in race 1, I really thought that he would be going forwards in this race, and he's not. He gained some places out of the early shuffle, but since then has slowly started slipping back again.
It's struggling a little bit, isn't it? I think, to be fair, I don't think you can judge many people on this particular race in terms of whether they move forward or backwards, because everybody is moving everywhere, isn't they? It's pretty much impossible to hold your position, because you just know somebody's going to lunge you. People in front are going to start battling. That'll hold you up. It's been one of the most chaotic races of the year, and of the season, I should say, actually. And it's not a track we were expecting that, Andy, is it? Because we were expecting Catalonia, maybe, people would just be pipping each other here and there, waiting 20 minutes, and there'll potentially be 20 overtakes or something. But everybody seems to be quite keen to drive side by side with each other, therefore hitting each other quite a lot as well. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can quite judge everybody on this particular race. As there goes a very wide moment for Jordan Taylor, and it's going to be a bit of a struggle to hold on to it now. He's back on the hybrid to try and protect that third place, but Nathan Smith seems very keen to lunge one up the inside.
Yeah, Nathan Smith carried much more speed through the final corner, but Jordan Taylor, I think, might fend him off here unless Nathan's feeling really brave under braking. They're both being caught by Elliot Dalton-Ayres as well. Nathan Smith on the inside. There is a bit of contact sideways for Jordan Taylor, and Dalton-Ayres should be right with them if they keep this up. They're side by side again now up through turn 3, and still somehow Jordan Taylor manages to hang on to the position, but very touchy-feely stuff between the two of them. Nathan Smith keen to try and get a podium if he can here. He's, as I said, really been showing some improved pace over recent rounds, but he goes right round the outside and runs out of racetrack. No, Nathan Smith with a bit of an error there, it has to be said, just carried a bit too much speed around the outside line, and that's going to send him plummeting down the order, which means, Jack, that we can focus on the battle for the race lead, because what was at one point a 2.7 second advantage for Chris Blakey has come down, and come down rapidly as soon as Andy Carroll broke through into second place.
I also think it's the first time that Josh Martin's overtaken someone tonight. Might be a bit harsh, that, but
it may also be true, I fear.
Yeah, I think so. Andy Carroll is, you're right, catching up to Chris Blakey. I'm not entirely sure what the hybrid situation is. I know that Chris Blakey has just been using one there to try and run away from Andy Carroll, but he does seem to be the charging horse right now, doesn't he? And I think Chris Blakey, we don't, I mean, to be fair, Andy, we wouldn't necessarily say, no offence to Chris Blakey, but we wouldn't expect him to come away with a race win, would we? We wouldn't put money on him towards the beginning of a weekend, but we're all here for new drivers winning in a race, and Chris Blakey would be a fantastic addition to the interview room, I'm sure, and he'd be very appreciative of it. So will Andy Carroll, but I think Andy Carroll has won a race before.
Yes.
So, yeah, both of these drivers will, I'm sure, be absolutely buzzing if they get onto the podium at all, as Andy Carroll is now at the inside, and there we go, overtaking down across the start-finish straight into turn 1 on the hybrid. That was a bit of an easy one in the end, as Chris Blakey didn't activate his.
Yeah, I think Chris knew that his time was up. He led, though, for, 11 minutes or so, so not a bad showing. And he's never had a top 5 before, and I think that might still be doable if he stands his ground a bit more when Jordan Taylor, Elliot Dalton-Ayres come a-knocking. They're the next two cars in behind. Then a gap back to Joel Lask and Josh Martin, who is in 6th place now, and Nathan Smith 7th after his gravelly excursion up at this part of the circuit a lap ago. Then you have got Craig Curtis still in 8th, still ahead of Jack Smith. So Jack Smith not able to get back past the lone Vauxhall Astra. In the background, his teammate Oliver Gibson, look, is up alongside Andy Dorman, but that's the outside for turn 5. And this is one of the big frustrations with Catalonia, isn't it? You get up the inside through one corner, a right-hander, say, the next corner is almost always a left-hander, and so unless you complete the manoeuvre at one turn, it's very, very hard to then complete it through the next couple of corners. And because there aren't that many turns where it's a big braking zone, very difficult to actually make a bit of a block pass round the outside's one way of doing it, though, and Oliver Gibson makes a liar out of me, made that look very easy.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit to the fact that the driver in front of him went off a little bit. I think it was Fabrizio Torri, was it? It was, was it Dorman? Sorry, Fabrizio Torri is now going through on Dorman, of course. Yeah, that was made a little bit easier that for Oliver Gibson, but he was probably not expecting it. He was probably trying to set something up for a little later down the line, as you have to do at Catalonia, because like you said, if you go on the inside for one corner, you're on the outside for the next. But it was pretty well executed, I'd say, from Oliver. Didn't panic. Here is Jordan Taylor, and he is in his little picture-in-picture as well. Currently in 3rd place on the hybrid. Got Elliot Dalton-Ayres searching all over the back of his gearbox, hasn't he? And it's going to be, I would say, now is a great time for Elliot Dalton-Ayres to start scoring some points on Jack Smith, and that would have been a big lunge up the inside. Jordan Taylor just about surviving for one more corner, but he's getting bullied out of it through turn 3.
No, that was nice, though, by Elliot Dalton-Ayres. Saw the gap. Jordan tried to close the door, but that was always going to lead to a little bit of paint being traded. For me, that was absolutely fair. That there was a gap. Dalton-Ayres committed to it, and Jordan Taylor trying to stand his ground again round the outside, but that ain't going to end well. And Dalton-Ayres, I think, is going to go through here into 3rd place. Now, can Jordan Taylor fight back immediately down the hill? Thinks about it, but Dalton-Ayres had that one covered, and they've got to be careful, because if they keep on scrapping, Joel Lask and Josh Martin aren't that far behind. So Jordan Taylor again tries to get up the inside. He's on the hybrid, he's on the grass, he's got the inside line, he gets the place back again. Brilliant racing.
Yeah, he just about got away with it because he was on the hybrid. It would have messed him up if he hadn't been able to get past, but then he messed the braking zone up, and all of a sudden he's climbing all over the curves yet again. But he is slowing them down, and I think Chris Blakey will be the biggest, the person with the biggest sigh of relief, because in second place he was being slightly caught, but now he's got another lap or so where he's getting away with it as Jordan Taylor goes to lunge one up the inside of Elliot Dalton. To be fair, I think he just missed his braking zone. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was the best of a bad situation from Jordan Taylor there, but he needs to be slightly careful. He needs to avoid a penalty, because it doesn't matter whether he gets past Elliot Dalton. If he's got a 5-second penalty or worse to his name, he's going to fall well outside the top 10.
I think he felt that Dalton Ayres braked a bit earlier than he was expecting, or that maybe Elliot was moving in the braking zone, but it was hard to tell on first viewing. But the Phoenix Sim Racing driver does make the place his own, and now, of course, because they were battling for half a lap or so, the chasing pack have caught them. Here comes Joel Lask up the inside, interestingly not using hybrid, whilst Taylor is, and yet Lask is still able to get the overlap. He's got the inside line down to turn 1, and this could put Joel up into 4th place. It will not put him into 4th place, because again, Jordan Taylor turns in as if he's not there. Josh Martin takes the Josh Martin line and disappears off to the left of shot, rejoining back behind Nathan Smith. I'm not entirely sure how he ended up there, but he hands another place away, just as he looked like he might be able to get involved in the scrap. But what a scrap it is. Jordan Taylor is proving harder to pass than a kidney stone, and now all of a sudden Joel Lask got Nathan Smith up the inside of him.
Harder to pass than a kidney stone. Yeah, that's not one I've heard before. Sounds like he's speaking from experience there, Randy. But yeah, it's Nathan Smith, I would say, who's getting slightly interested. And does he make a little bit of a move? It's Josh Martin making a move on Nathan Smith, actually, as we couldn't quite see them do it, unfortunately. But Josh Martin has managed to get that BMW up at least one more position, which he threw away, obviously, going through turn 1. Jordan Taylor is just about pulling away, but ultimately Elliot Dalton Ayres has pulled away, hasn't he? A good second to his name now in 3rd position with less than 4 minutes to go. The gap between Chris Blakey and Elliot Dalton Ayres is, if I'm not mistaken, just over 2 seconds. So it's going to be a big effort if Elliot's to try and go up to 2nd place.
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes to go or so. So it depends. He's got the pace, maybe. Let's see what the lap times are this time through, because they're about to complete the latest lap of the race. 8 laps down, and Andy Carroll 2.5 seconds up the road. Dalton Ayres took a chunk out of Blakey, actually, even in that final sector alone, didn't he? So I think he has got a chance of getting there. And honestly, Chris Blakey's best course of action, if Dalton Ayres arrives on his tail, I think is to wave him by, because if he fights Elliot Dalton Ayres, the next group of cars are likely to catch him too. Whereas if he just lets Elliot go, then maybe 3rd place could still be his. We'll wait and see. Use the hybrid there down the pit straight, built the gap up slightly again, and just manages to breathe a brief sigh of relief. Now in the background, look at that. That's Oliver Gibson up alongside Nicky Taylor. That's Carl Felvers joining in as well. So Gibson's been making some progress whilst we've not been following him, and he manages to get past Nicky Taylor as well there. So Oliver Gibson up now into 9th place.
It's amazing. You can't take your eyes off any of it, can you? We need about 4 picture-in-pictures to try and follow the Josh Martin battle, the Nicky Taylor battle, the Oliver Gibson progression, the Jack Smith progression, and obviously the fight for 1st place. There's so much going on around Catalonia right now. It's very, very good racing, unlike potentially race 1, you could argue. This is a lot more entertaining. And Jack Smith now works himself up the inside of another BMW. That is Josh Martin, of course. Going into the chicane, it's going to be his place. There we go, and Nathan Smith is next on his target.
Yeah, and Martin had a go at Nathan, didn't work, lost momentum, and that opened the door nicely then for Jack Smith to come through. So Jack Smith picking up the places now, and is up into 7th place, that is now, I think, for Jack. So a good evening's work for him. 3rd in race 1, a solid, maybe top 6 could still be doable in this one, with at least 1 more lap to go at the end of this one. They're lapping in the 148s or so. Again, it's going to be touch and go as to whether the next lap is the final lap, but I think on this occasion it might just be, because the pace is a little bit slower than it was in race number 1. Yes, it will be, won't it? So final lap about to begin, and Andy Carroll 3 seconds up the road from everybody else. We now need to start looking back through the record books, don't we, to remember when that victory for Andy Carroll was. I seem to recall it was a pit stop race at Monza way back when, so we'll try and figure out how many months ago that was. In the meantime, Elliot Dalton Ayres is trying to figure out a way past Chris Blakey, and for the time being, Jack, he can't quite figure it out.
No, he can't, but I love the fact that as soon as you poised that question, Lewis Edwards started typing on the Discord. Yeah, the encyclopedic knowledge of VRRC, that is Lewis Edwards. I'm sure he's probably picked the date out of his head somewhere. You're right, I think Andy Carroll's loving life, but Chris Blakey has certainly got a bit of a headache for this last lap. It's going to be difficult. Will Elliot Dalton be kind and not really think much of the move and just happy with third place? I don't think so. He's a racing driver. He wants a championship. He certainly wants to be involved in the championship running anyway, and he's going to try and take every single point away from Jack Smith, who is still struggling down in 7th position. We said that he got 7th place last week, I think. Is it going to be 7th again, or is he going to be able to get past Nathan Smith? We'll have to wait and see. Here is Joel Lask trying to chase down Jordan Taylor, who's seen podium position slip away from him. As Elliot Dalton is again looking at the inside, trying to pile the pressure on Chris Blakey. Andy Carroll, 3.5 seconds, if not 4 seconds to the good, as they go down towards turn 10 into the hairpin. A great overtaking opportunity as everybody else is trying to line it up. Chris Blakey goes very, very narrow. That's going to ruin his run, Andy.
That's Nicky Taylor at the inside of Jack Smith, and Jack Smith's off! Jack Smith's off! Nicky Taylor into the side of the championship leader, and Jack Smith ends up in the gravel down at turn 10, hemorrhaging positions, and that will definitely be discussed later. Meanwhile, to the final turn comes Andy Carroll, and it looks as though he's going to claim his first victory since, I think it was at Watkins Glen in the GTV3 Championship. Andy Carroll victorious here at Barcelona. It's a drag race to the line for second, but Chris Blakey gets his first ever podium here at the VRRC, with Elliot Dalton perhaps the best point scorer of the night, getting back on the podium again. Second in race 1, third in race 2. A good night's work as far as the championship's concerned, especially with Jack Smith ending up only 11th after that late collision with Nicky Taylor. And well, I'm not going to pass my judgment on it, but certainly it looked like there was contact, and I'm pretty sure that Jack is not going to have appreciated that one. Andy Carroll will appreciate the victory, though. What a fantastic result that was. And Andy Carroll, as I said, when we go to circuits like this, where you need to look after the tyres a little bit, he always does seem to come out on top. And Andy, once again, manages to prove that point. So Andy Carroll then victorious here in the second race at Barcelona. We'll have all of the thoughts from our podium finishers on the other side of this break. Welcome back, everyone, to Barcelona. A very exciting reverse grid race, when aren't they exciting, here at the VRRC, has just concluded, and it brings us another race win for Andy Carroll. And Andy, it's been a little while since we had you on the top step of the podium, but I've said a few times tonight, when we go to a track where you have to think a little bit about managing the tyres, where it becomes a bit of a tactical race, you do always seem to excel. And yeah, really happy to see you manage to do the same again tonight. Well done.
Yeah, I think we should have tracks like that every week.
We can't make it too easy for you now.
It does feel like it's been a long time since we've had this chat.
It's good to have you back. Were you confident coming into the night that maybe a race win was on the cards?
No, never confident of a race win. It's far too close. You saw by the qualifying times that, you know, top 10 were bare, well, apart from Oliver out the front. I think the rest of the top 10 was so close that, yeah, you know, even just trying to get, I'm always happy, you know, if I can sneak somewhere close to the top 5, because it's, as I say, it's so close between everyone, and this track is actually quite difficult to overtake, even with those long straights. Everyone kind of uses hybrid at the same time, so kind of cancels each other out a lot of the track. So yeah, it was definitely a pleasant surprise in race 2 when I sort of came out of that first corner quite high up the pack, and then it was just a question of whether I could, how far through I could get.
And that sort of sets you up nicely in these reverse grid races if you can make that early progress. How much of that, honestly, was down to a little bit of good fortune through the first few corners? Because it seemed like there was a lot going on.
Absolute luck. I was just I was on the right hand side of the track, and everything went on the left hand side of the track into turn 1. So made up quite a few positions just coming through that corner, and then it was just literally trying to. I think I had to use quite a few hybrids to get past Jordan. And then, just trying to sort of was waiting to see what the weather did. The skies were very dark, so I was praying that there wouldn't be a downpour right towards the end. But thankfully it stayed dry. And congrats as well to Chris, because that was a hell of a drive to keep Elliot behind him. And I think that's probably his best result. I think, is it?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So well done, Chris. That was a good result.
Amazing stuff. Well, we're going to hear from Chris in a moment or two. But before we do, Andy, as well as your first race win of the season, a nice load of championship points going your way, you're also going to be the recipient of our Driver of the Round award as well for a consistent night, topped off with a really great victory there in race 2. So congratulations, the Driver of the Round award making its way to you as well.
Andy, appreciate that.
So Andy Carroll winning in more ways than one in that second race of the evening. But Jack Oliphant, it is time to welcome for the second week in a row, actually, a new driver into the broadcast booth for a podium interview. And that man, of course, our second place finisher, Chris Blakey.
Yeah, it's a big, massive congratulations, Chris. It's always nice to have a new face to chat to in the interview room after a successful race as well. You must be buzzing with that one.
Hi, guys. I am sweating like God knows what, and surprised I managed to keep everybody behind. It was tyres started going off drastically towards the end, and I used up all my hybrids, which was just clinging on for dear life at the end.
Were you clinging on? Were you using those hybrids and chewing through your tyres in the hope that you could get a first place, or were you sort of a little bit more conserved than that?
No, I just thought, let everybody scrap behind me. I don't know what happened to Josh at the start, but I just thought, right, I'm in the lead. Let's just crack on, and I'll just build a bigger gap as what I can, try to be sensible with the hybrids, and keep a couple for when I knew inevitably people were going to catch me. Just the tyres just didn't last, so I'm still not used to managing the tyres in this yet. It's still not my forte.
Well, a lot of people did fight behind you, and obviously something did happen to Josh at the beginning. We're not entirely sure what either, but you still did have Elliot Daltonaire as a proven race winner at VRRC hunting you down, and then obviously, trying to get past you in those last couple of laps and everything like that. So when that sort of started happening, did you look in your rearview mirror and think, oh my God, that is a proven race winner coming at my way now? Or were you sort of like treating it exactly the same as you would be if you were in 10th place?
A car behind you is a car behind you. It's as long as you're in the same class, you're still fighting for the same piece of road. It's just a case of make your car as wide as possible and pray they don't find a way around. So props to Elliot. There's a couple of times where he may have had to bail out to avoid hitting me, but no, it was good, clean racing. Now
you got a little bit of a taste for it. Are you itching to get on the sim during the week, get a few practices in, and see if we can speak to you again?
Yeah, no, definitely. I need as much practice as I can get my hands on. I've got some load cell pedals coming, so hopefully sort of get a bit more into it and a bit more practice for my real racing. So it's all good.
I think an improvement on the brake pedal is almost as important as improvements in the direct drive or whatever wheel you've got. I think as well, you'll find once you get used to it, the car is a lot easier to maintain in terms of the tyre temperatures and everything like that. Good luck, Chris, with getting all that installed and practicing, of course, and we'll hopefully be speaking to you another time during the season.
Thank you.
Yeah, big congratulations, Chris, the latest driver we add to the list of podium finishers here at the VRRC. The only driver to get 2 podiums out of the night, though, is our third place finisher, Elliot Dalton-Ayres. And Elliot, that must be music to your ears from a championship perspective. Second place race 1, third in race 2. It would have been nice to win a race, I'm sure, but you'll take that, right?
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone else who is nearly at the top of the championship is a little bit further down. Hopefully outside the top 5. I haven't looked at the results yet. But yeah, it was a really good race. Glad to get another podium, and just good race.
It's been a really solid night for you tonight. Not that your first 3 weeks were bad, but is this a track that you always expected to sort of really gel with?
Nope. I absolutely hate this track. I mean, the last 2 times we've came here, I've done absolutely terrible, and I was dreading coming here tonight. But it seemed to have proven in a different way. I actually quite like it now.
Funny that, isn't it? You get a couple of podium finishes and it can very easily change your opinion on a racetrack. It's by far the most consistent night that you've had so far this season as well, so that must be nice. Has there been a little bit of bad luck maybe that stopped you from putting together, 2 podiums or 2 top 5 finishes in a night, or lack of practice, or do you feel like maybe it's just, now you're starting to really get into your groove?
I think it was just a bit of stroke. It was a stroke of bad luck. I mean, round one at Magny Cors, my ping was absolutely through the roof, and I just fell down, and I rolled it on lap 1, but clawed it back. But it wasn't enough to get a podium. But yeah, this has been a really consistent night, and good for points to drag me back to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Second in the championship we have you at the moment. We'll have a look at the official points in a moment or two, but halfway through the season now, Jack's got a decent little lead, but as we saw tonight, he is not immune to a bit of bad luck, or perhaps a bit of a lack of pace. So how beatable do you think he is as far as the championship goes?
I mean, he's beatable as we've proven today, but he's very quick, Jack. He's also very consistent, which is kind of annoying, but it proves to be a good little battle once you get into a battle with him. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes, and hopefully we can catch back up to him.
Excellent. Well, Elliot, congratulations. Really solid night tonight, and we hope you'll have more of the same next week. Well done.
Cheers, Andy.
So Elliot Dalton-Ayres then completes our podium finishes, and that almost completes the evening's activity. But first, we need to take a look at what all of that means for the championship standings, because, with drop scores coming into play, it's not a complete disaster for Jack Smith, but it does mean that he's starting to use up a couple of those sort of drop score joker cards, if you like. He still holds a healthy lead, though. 106 points, plays 79 for Elliot Dalton-Ayres. He's only 3 ahead of Nicky Taylor, who is 1 ahead of Oliver Gibson, who is 6 ahead of Andy Carroll. It's very, very tight for second on back, Jack.
It is indeed, and the problem that Jack Smith might have is that his pain is not going to go anytime soon because of those fantastic first 2 weeks, and then the change to the car. That'll mean that he's going to be on top of the championship for a fair few weeks to come, and that means maximum ballast will stick around for quite a while as well. So it's going to start being clawed back potentially, but that makes it all the more exciting, doesn't it? Elliot Dalton-Ayres, you're right, it is very close between himself and, Nicky Taylor and Oliver Gibson and Andy Carroll. You could actually argue, to be fair, as well. 10 points between second and fifth. Fabrizio Torres and Joel Lask tied on points, clawing at the heels of the last prize-giving position of fifth place. And then Kyle Felvers, Josh Martin, Jordan Taylor, Andy Dorman, and Craig Curtis round out the top 12. We obviously have the fan of the round as well. We'll throw that in before we get going. One thing we'll do is we will go to the next championship graphic just to make sure everybody's quickly aware of what's going along. We will, talk about this more next week. But you can see that we're running something slightly different. The Porsche Cayman Cup, that's the one that's going to be live broadcasted. That's the one that's going to basically replace what we've been doing now in the touring cars. But just before, we're going to do a Renault Clio Cup. So there's more racing during the one evening. You can see qualifying starts at 6:30 for the Clio Cup, with the final race at 7:10. And then we go into the Porsche Cayman Cup, which half an hour later kicks off in qualifying, and that will be broadcast live. So there's more racing to be had on a Wednesday evening, but the broadcast for everybody to watch will be for the Cayman Cup, and there'll be a watch-along for the Renault Clio Cup, probably just with Lewis. And now the fan of the round, before we let you all get going and go to bed, will be decided from us three, and we said it was going to be Elaine Gibson, I believe. Having said that, I can't see on the YouTube chat now, so I'm struggling to think if I've got that wrong.
You know, you're right. You're right.
I am right. There we go. Yeah, fantastic. Elaine Gibson, mainly for a little quip about Jack not having any dirty laundry in the background because he visited her at the weekend and got all of his washing done for him. So, yeah, so big congratulations, Elaine. A bobble hat, NGK bobble hat, will be going your way.
Absolutely. And congratulations. We like to have you all getting involved in the YouTube chat. So do keep that coming. Perhaps next week will be your time to win a prize because next week we'll head into the second half of the season. 4 weeks down, 4 more to go. We head to Austria's Red Bull Ring. That should produce 2 really good races. Lots of slipstreaming and hybrid overtaking opportunities before we head to Zandvoort, Donington Park. And it all concludes at Hockenheim on the 4th of October. But for now, from myself, Andy McEwan, Jack Oliphant, Lewis Edwards, Rich Hayden, Eric Axelson, everyone who works so hard behind the scenes here at the VRRC, we thank you all for your company, and we'll see you again, same time, same place, next week.